President Mellow, take a minute, talk to folks about what your average student looks like. Again, the non-traditional has become the norm with the traditional. You've also done some really interesting things to increase student engagement and success. You've been successful with some of our First in the World grants. Talk to the audience about what your students look like and what you're trying to do to help more students not just enroll, gain access, but actually complete.
Thank you, Secretary. So at LaGuardia Community College, we have about 60,000 students. We're in big old factory buildings in Queens, New York. About half of our students were not born in the United States, and they come from 160 different countries, and they speak 110 different languages. I always say it's not because we're smart, we're just lucky. We're in Queens, it's where there's a lot of immigration. But there's a real vitality there, and you can feel the vitality of the future of the United States when you come to LaGuardia. It's pretty extraordinary. But to serve that kind of community, to serve public school students who grow up poor in New York City, you have to really understand a couple of things. One is you really have to understand financing, and that's why in New York, I think I'm so excited about the American College Promise that you, Secretary Duncan, and President Obama have talked about, because we do really have to reset what's the norm, because we have to agree high school's not enough, and that's a big thing for the United States. I think we also have to look at funding. So community colleges in the United States spend less per student than the elementary school does in your area. And to really deal with students whose lives are really tough, and as the Secretary said, who aren't just students, they're also parents, they're employers, they're taking care of family members, have to really sort of rethink what college is. So one of the things that the First in the World grant allowed us to do, and I have to say parenthetically, when we applied for something, Secretary Duncan, that was called First in the World, it sounded like such hubris until we got it, and then I really liked the title. But what we decided is that to really make something work, it's got to be a system. So you've mentioned some great programs, and programs are exciting. They show us how things can be done. But for example, the wonderful ASAP program that the City of New York funds, tremendous success, costs about $4,000 more per student per year. That's enormous. And so what we've really been using the First in the World grant to do is three major things. One is, there are millions, close to probably 20 million Americans who don't have a high school diploma. And what we're going to do with those folks who don't even make it through high school, is really important. So one of the First in the World activities is to bridge between the GED program and college education, so that there really is that seamless connection. And that has been very exciting to do. The second thing we want to do is really make sure that faculty become very central to what goes on. They're often the missing person in the equation about who in the system can make a difference. So really investing in faculty, investing in their education. I've been doing some great work around the country with an online professional development activity that helps faculty where they are, especially adjunct faculty. And what we're interested in doing there is helping faculty learn how to deal with this very new group of students. There are students in these classes nobody has ever seen before, sitting side by side. And so helping faculty introduce students to the intellectual discipline, to understanding, what is psychology, what is economics, what is education. And we found that just that has increased student retention and credit accumulation by 10% in our first year. We're really excited by that. And then the second piece is to really do advising in a very different way. Students come in, first generation, poor students, they have no idea what a credit or a non-credit is. They don't know what financial aid progress standards mean. You really have to help them. But I have one academic advisor for every 3,700 students at LaGuardia. So I need a lot more to do that, and we knew that we couldn't get funding. So we've brought in peer advising. We've created teams so that faculty are now involved, not in choosing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but really thinking through what should higher education mean. So it's really investing in faculty, It's really using technology appropriately, but it's thinking as a system that we've been very excited by, and our initial results from the First in the World grant are very promising.
You know, she says something that's very important. I think the public needs to understand that people on these campuses really do care about students.
And, yeah.
One of the other partners I want to bring in who we should partner with is when you really deeply connect with employers, very interesting things happen. So I'll give you one example. We partnered with Weill Cornell, which is a big medical complex in New York City. And first of all, they didn't want to talk to a community college because, hey, you know, why don't we just talk to NYU if we're... And we said, well, we think we can help you. What is your worst labor problem? And they said it was turnover in something called the private physician's office. So they have doctors who are working in the hospital and doctors who have their private practice there. And they would only hire people with bachelor's degrees because they wanted people who presented well. And those people lasted about 7 months on average. So the churn was incredible. And we said, no, if you sit and really help us, we will put together a 15-week certificate that folks will go into very low income. Most people who had a high school diploma had been underemployed. They come in, they work through it. It works to the specifications of the company. And even more importantly, once you're at Weill Cornell, you then get tuition reimbursement. So those low-income people then have support to continue education. And it's that kind of creativity that I think is really important, because businesses spend each year about what the US government does in training of their folks. Why we're running these two systems parallel is still sort of crazy. So I think the other real partner that, again, Secretary Duncan, the federal government has a bully pulpit, is to really bring in those employers, not with lip service, but as real partners.